Stephen Hurahan here at BrandMasterAcademy.com, and in this video I want to talk to you about positioning, specifically the unlimited powerful advantages that you have by positioning your brand effectively. Now, to be honest, the amount of advantages that you have by positioning your brand are endless, but my goal in this video is to show you just how significant brand positioning is within your brand strategy. If you execute your brand positioning strategy well, then you have countless, and I mean countless of advantages, because your positioning strategy is fundamental and it shapes the rest of the entire brand. It's a cornerstone of your entire brand strategy, and everything else from within your brand is developed from that positioning strategy. So let's dive into a few of the most powerful advantages that positioning your brand will give you. The first advantage is a laser-like focus on who you're actually serving. So when you position your brand, you stand back and you look at the market landscape and you get to know your competitors and you get to know your audience. But getting to know your audience goes deep, and you get to know who they are, what they like, what they dislike, what their personality is like, the challenges they go through, the pain points they have, what emotions they're going through. And all of this detail allows you to focus in on exactly who they are through your communication, through your products, through your services. So you're focusing on them, you're focusing on what they need, and you're delivering what they need through your products, through your services, through your messaging. So it resonates, your messaging resonates with them, your services, your products resonate with them, and you can have a much more intimate relationship with that target audience. Advantage number two is differentiation from the competition. Now, when you step back and you look at positioning strategy, the end goal, certainly the core end goal of positioning, is to differentiate yourself from your competitors. So the differentiation strategy, the positioning strategy, involves looking exactly at what your competitors do and specifically what they don't do, so you can see those gaps. And when you do see those gaps, you're able to hone in on those and potentially develop a differentiation strategy around those. And once you've developed a differentiation strategy and you've shown your audience why you're different from your competitors, that then gives your audience a reason to turn their heads and look away from your competitors towards your brand. And if your differentiation strategy is compelling enough, if what you offer is different and valuable enough, then that will sit in the mind of your audience and potentially help you to carve out a new position for your brand. So being able to differentiate yourself from your competitors is a core advantage of positioning your brand. Now, the third advantage to an effective positioning strategy is being able to focus in on the problems that you solve. Now, if you look at brands that aren't effectively positioned, and this will be probably about 70% of the brands out there, because most brands don't take the time to position themselves. They go out into the market and they try to be all things to everybody. And an example of this would be a one-stop shop. And if you look at those types of brands, you can see that their communication is not targeted effectively. They're not speaking directly to the pain points because they're too busy telling their audience that they can fix every problem. Whereas a brand that's more effectively positioned can focus in on very, very specific problems that their audience is having. They can understand those problems in a lot more detail. They can refine the communication. They can refine the stories so that they resonate with their audience on a much more intimate level. They can then go on and refine their products, refine their services, refine their entire solution so that their brand evolves around their audience. So that is a huge advantage to brands that position themselves effectively, is they can speak directly to those challenges and to those problems that their audience has. Now, the fourth advantage of brand positioning strategy is increased memorability or increased brand awareness. Now, when you take the time to position your brand, you're going to go in and you're going to find yourself a unique differentiator. And this is going to be the reason that you give your audience to remember you. If you're able to build an effective communication strategy around that differentiator and give them a reason around the value of that differentiator to remember your brand, then you're going to be in the mix when it comes to that buying decision process. And if you're in the mix during the buying decision process and you're in consideration, that's where the rubber meets the road in terms of brand. branding. That is what you're aiming for with your positioning strategy, with your tagline, with your communication. You want them to remember your brand. You want them to remember the value that you offer through your differentiation strategy. And if you're able to pull that off, if they do remember you, then that increased memorability, that increased brand awareness will grow over time, and that will give you a huge advantage in the marketplace. Advantage number 5 of brand positioning strategy is brand storytelling and messaging. Now, if you don't define your brand position in the market, then you're not going to be able to build effective stories that will resonate with your audience. On the other hand, if you have taken the time and you've got a well-refined positioning strategy and you understand who your audience is and their day-to-day lives. What do they do on a day-to-day basis? What are their lives like? What are the problems, not just that you solve, but the problems that they have in and around your solution? When you understand that and you understand what their life is like on an intimate level, then you can start to build stories that are going to resonate a lot more effectively. And when you're able to do that, when you're able to build stories that speak to who the audience is, then they're going to think to themselves, wow, this brand gets me. And that's when you're going to resonate with them. And that's when you're going to make that human connection. Human connection is what your brand should aim for, because it's not in the mind that the decision is made, it's in the heart. So if you're able to sit in there, if you're able to tell stories about your brand, which really are stories about your audience and the challenges that they have, then you're going to resonate with them and you're going to connect on a human level. And if you do that, that's a massive advantage in the marketplace. Advantage number 6 is justified pricing strategies. Now, when you understand what it is that you do differently in the marketplace when compared to your competitors, then whatever pricing strategy you define for your brand and for your products is easily justifiable, because you can talk to that difference and you can talk to the value of that difference. But if you go into the marketplace and you haven't effectively positioned your brand and you're asked to justify the price difference, it becomes a lot more difficult to justify that price. You can't clearly articulate the difference that you offer in the marketplace and the value of that difference. Therefore, talking to a pricing strategy and justifying a pricing strategy becomes a lot more difficult. So it's the value in the difference that you offer from your competitors that allows you to speak to a pricing strategy, and that allows you to determine what pricing strategy is right for your brand, and you can deliver that with conviction. Advantage number 7 is clarity and vision for your brand direction. Now, I did say earlier the positioning strategy is the bedrock and the foundation of the entire brand, and everything else developed within the brand stems from your positioning strategy, and this is a perfect example of that. Your brand vision projects what your brand will look like in the future, maybe 5, maybe 10 years. And if you have a clear idea of what your positioning strategy is, if you've honed in on that, then when you project your brand into the future, you can take your position into account, and you can also safeguard that position. You can put in place plans to protect your position long term so you stay ahead of the competition. So this is a perfect example of how the rest of your brand stems from your positioning strategy. And if you have clarity of vision, then you're able to make decisions with a lot more clarity as well. And you're able to get a very good understanding of what you want your brand to look like in the future. Advantage number 8 is a greater understanding of your audience's challenges. Now, I did speak earlier about understanding the problems that your audience has, but here we're going a little deeper on this. And what we're trying to do is to understand the audience on an intimate level. You can reach out to your audience, you can talk to them, you can ask them about your challenges, and it's when you understand those challenges, and this is the advantage here, when you understand those challenges on a much more intimate level, you're able to empathize with them. And if you're able to show that empathy, they're going to feel understood. And if they feel understood, that's when they're going to make that human connection with you. That's when they're going to think to themselves, you know, this brand, they really get me, they really understand me. And focusing in on an understanding of those challenges, showing that understanding, will really help to build that connection, will really help to show your brand as more than just a corporation, and to help build those human connections through emotion. So understanding those challenges on an intimate level so you can shape your communication communication and show a lot more empathy will really give you an advantage when building those human relationships. Advantage number 9 is increased relevancy within your niche. Now, I've spoken to this before and it's nothing new here. If you go out into the marketplace and you try to be all things to everybody, effectively you haven't positioned your brand, then you're not going to resonate with anybody. You're not going to speak to anybody. Nobody's going to think to themselves, wow, this brand gets me. This brand is talking to exactly what I want to hear. Your communication is going to be unfocused because you don't have that clarity. Now, I know a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with this because when I speak to entrepreneurs about positioning for the first time and I suggest to them that we need to be more relevant to a specific audience, their first thought is towards the audience that they're turning their backs on. They think of all of that business that they're leaving on the table and all of those potential clients, and they really struggle with that idea. But it's not until a business niches itself down does it become more relevant. Then they can tailor their communication to speak directly to what their audience is looking for. And an example of this would be a digital marketing agency versus a Facebook marketing agency. Now, if somebody is looking for help with Facebook ads and they go out into the marketplace and they come across a digital marketing agency who's talking about traffic and SEO and display advertising in and amongst social media advertising and Facebook ads, then their messaging is going to be less tailored. When their traffic jumps onto their website and they see all of these different messages and they're looking specifically for Facebook ads, the vast majority of the messages that they're going to read is not going to be tailored towards them. If, on the other hand, they come across a Facebook marketing agency and the Facebook marketing agency is all about their Facebook ads and they talk specifically about the pain points around Facebook ads, about setting up campaigns, about setting up the right audiences and how to increase click-through rates and everything in and around Facebook ads, well then they're going to resonate a lot deeper with their audience. They're going to be a lot more relevant to them. And then they're going to be able to talk a lot more specifically about specialization, about their expertise in the field, and that's just going to make them a lot more relevant. So if you're able to position yourself effectively, then you're going to be able to talk to that expertise. You're going to be a lot more relevant and you're going to mean a lot more to that specific audience. Advantage number 10 is better decision making. When you've positioned your brand and you know what that position is, you've got an intimate understanding of your audience and their pain points, then you become obsessed about who your audience is. You become obsessed about their challenges and about protecting that position in the marketplace. So all of the decisions that you make are a lot more focused, and you become a lot more creative with those decisions as well, because you take a step back and you start thinking outside the box in terms of the challenges that your audience is going through and how you can better serve those challenges. So your decision-making processes become a lot more refined because everything comes back to the position that you hold in the marketplace, about serving your audience and about protecting that position. So effective decision making, creative decision making is a huge advantage to having a strong position in the marketplace. Now, although these are 10 of the most powerful advantages of positioning your brand, this is just a drop in the ocean. Really, the list goes on and on and on and on and on, because as I've said before, the positioning strategy is the foundation of your entire brand strategy. Everything else you develop within your brand strategy stems from the position you take in the market. So everything from the tone of voice that you have, the language, your personality, the archetypes, the messaging strategy, your storytelling, your brand identity system, the color palette, the typography, I could go on and on and on. If every single one of these are developed from your positioning strategy based on who your audience is, what they like, their pain points, their challenges, what their desires are, then every single element of your brand strategy becomes an advantage. So again, I can't stress how important your positioning strategy is and how it influences everything within your entire brand strategy. But I'd love to know from you, what are your favorite examples of brand positioning, or what are your biggest challenges in and around positioning your brand or developing a brand positioning strategy? I'd love to know. If you could reach out to me in the comments. If you've got any questions at all around brand positioning strategy, let me know in the comments as well. I'll do my best to answer all of those questions. If you like this video, if it was helpful in any way, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification button, and it will let you know when I release a new video. And I will see you in the next one.